out.
Okay, Stephen.
Yes.
If I have to run, it's because Abby's because she's actually having a seizure as we're speaking, but my husband's dealing with it. So it could be a major one we're looking at. So if you see me just shooting off, I could be back in 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh man, that's that's live. That is what it is exactly what it is then, isn't it?
This is it. Yeah, so, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. As shocking as it is. I was going to put up we haven't got everybody in, but I think we could go ahead then, in the light of that. So I guess I'm going to welcome everybody and I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping and just to say that thanks a lot for coming along again and for everybody that's sharing the events out as we go because I'm getting a little bit exhausted. Kind of every morning, I'm in a bit of a loop. Every morning I wake up and I have to start promoting and promoting again and again. So thanks to everybody, and a few of them are on here. I can see that are always sharing my stuff, and people are arriving. We've nearly 50 people tonight, so that's great. The little bit of housekeeping is we are recording the conversations because the idea of recording them is just so we have a place that if people can go back and visit them, and if they feel that there's learnings that they want to see, okay, what was said there, and they can go back and see that. So I hope everybody's cool with that. We're recording now. So Vera is she's absolutely going to be along in a minute, but so what I was going to do, and I didn't say this to you before, Deborah, which is a bit silly of me, but what I was going to do to begin with, because of Abigail's condition is, just remind us all.
He has Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, which is a very severe form of epilepsy.
Right. Can I share a screen? I hope it's not a trigger for you, but it's a very interesting thing that I seen this week of an American kid with the exact same syndrome. So just to give a little bit of context, it's a lovely little thing, but just to give the idea that this is a global phenomenon. It's not it's not as local in Ireland, but it's all over the world. So this is an interesting thing. It was on Now This. I think Now This. So, oops, not doing everything very well here, but. So I'm just going to share the screen. It's a minute, and I forget what it is. It's only a minute long. So just to give people a bit of context, that this is a beautiful little girl in America, and whose parents were living the same things that you've been living a little bit, Deborah.
Yeah.
Over 25 different combinations of drugs. Well, we got to the breaking point when we almost lost her. She had a really bad seizure. We were told that she wouldn't make it past 9 years old. And so I knew that we were going to have to do something different besides what the doctors were telling us. So we turned to cannabis. Prior to cannabis, she had been on all these drugs, so she was sedated all day and night. When we began giving her cannabis, the very first day, she went seizure-free for the first time in 3 years. She'll have a seizure once a week, sometimes once every 3 weeks.
So I really hope that wasn't any kind of trigger, Deborah, but does it frame a little bit your experience?
Absolutely, 100%. Similar story. These children are born perfectly healthy and they walk and talk. And I mean, Abigail was perfect up to the age of 6.
Wow.
Had her first seizure, and she's now 16, and she's using wheelchairs, and You know, she has retardation now at this stage. We used every drug known to man, vagus nerve stimulator, which is an implant put into the chest, up through the vagus nerve and into the brain, and that releases electrical probes into the brain every few minutes for a couple of seconds to try and diffuse seizures. Ketogenic diets, every drug known to man, you name it, we've been there. So we have, and lately now we're medical cannabis and CBD oil, and major improvements.
Very good. So the biggest improvements, is it a reduction of the seizures, which is a nightmare every time they happen, I imagine?
Absolutely. It's Abby was having maybe up to 140 seizures in a month, and they dropped down into their 30s. So and huge seizures, like, I mean, she couldn't even recover from them. She'd be into another one. She became anorexic because of it. She dropped under 4 stone. And with those seizures, there is like spasticity. Abby's feet really suffer in seizures, and that her hands and go so stiff and so sore. For days later, she can't walk or, you know, maneuver her joints and things like that. Yesterday, Abby stood up from the floor, which was the most wonderful thing. We couldn't believe it. She was on the floor and she went to get, and I grabbed the phone and videoed her, and she was like a newborn giraffe trying to get up. Her legs were wobbling, and there's just a little person in there. Well, Abigail was completely sedate on a couch all day in her pajamas, just ate what I gave her. She was just existing. Now she has PrEP. So when I go to feed her now, she's saying, what kind of bus truck or trial are you trying to put me through now, Mammy? I'm not eating that. So she has preference now. She has a personality. She's gained weight, she's looking good, she's recovering faster from her seizures. I mean, I could be here till doomsday just rolling out this stuff to the difference in Abigail. The excitement yesterday when she did that, she stood up, and when she sat down, she got her 2 little hands and she went like this, and she folded them in together, which was something which was quite difficult for Abigail to do. And for us, that was huge. And a few weeks ago, Vera, you put up a video of Ava drinking from a cup.
That's right.
It was so exciting. I mean, it was just brilliant to see her doing these things. They're just huge milestones, just huge milestones. See, that's fabulous. So it is just, it really warms my heart, because I know how big that is. That's just such a huge.
Wow.
Yeah. We'd be delighted for everybody else to experience that as well. Like to standing up independently it's so exciting. It's so exciting to see.
It was bigger than the lottery. It's just, I mean, my husband was saying to me, why are you crying? And I couldn't stop myself. I mean, I couldn't even tell my mum on the phone. There was bubbles coming out noses, and it was just such an emotional thing to see Abigail stand up on her own 2 little feet, wobbly and all over the place. And it was the most wonderful experience a parent in our situation can experience, no doubt.
Don't you feel like that when you see that, you know you've done the right thing? You know, you know you've taken the right step with the cannabis, because you can see the, you know, you can see the improvement there before you, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. When you're getting the evidence head on, because initially when you start off in this journey, there's so many ifs, ands, and maybes. And when you're trying to wean drugs out, I mean, there's times I've been going, oh God, it's not working, you know, I get, and then she just turned the corner next day and she'd come back with something bigger, like Abby's feeding herself now. And It's a mess. It's like giving a 2-year-old something to eat, but I don't care. I think it's fantastic. Like today, bad move, lasagna, really bad move to give her that. She was wearing most of it. But all her little things, she's excited about going to school, where school was somewhere she didn't want to go.
What age now, Deborah?
Huh?
What age is Abigail now?
Abby's 16. She'll be 17 now in July. So
a young woman.
Yeah, absolutely a young woman, and she has preference to what she eats and what she wears, and she's very smart. There's a smart child in there, with loads of information that we didn't know was in there. We really didn't know. I mean, Abby has been diagnosed with autism as well. And now I'm starting to wonder, was she ever autistic at all? Because from taking her CBD oils and her THC, all those characteristics are disappearing slowly, but they're definitely, her anxieties, the repetitiveness, that's all gone. That's like someone just massaged it all away through time. I mean, it's a slow process, but it's such a worthwhile one. It really, really is.
Fantastic story. And we're just about yourself, Deborah. Where are you actually from? You're from
Dundalk.
There's
yeah,
the
yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about the MCAP afterwards, and how you're getting on with that. Vera, I mean, we all know your story very well, but I think something that always gets blased over a little bit is the actual condition that Ava has. So this was a thing that I wanted to demonstrate. Is like Deborah, there is different forms of epilepsy that are having real results with medical cannabis as well. So tell us about Ava, the lady.
I think that I think like the Lennox-Gastaut and the Dravet syndrome are sort of I just would describe them as almost first cousins of each other. They're one of the most complex and difficult forms of epilepsy to control. So you know, I'm sure Deborah would concur with this, that like back in the time, the amount of hope that you're given for your child's future is quite limited, to be honest with you. It's you know, the prospect of how they're going to be and how they're going to, you know, what their life is going to be like. But I often think that, you know, medical cannabis has reduced Ava's seizures. She has about 95% seizure freedom, I would say. And if cannabis can result in seizure freedom for the likes of Dravet syndrome and Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, it really indicates the power of cannabis as a medication. Because these conditions they're referred to as, you know, uncontrolled epilepsy, but it's only uncontrolled by pharmaceutical measures, not by cannabis. And
because they treat.
Have you frozen, Deborah, I think?
Oh God.
You froze a little bit. Do you want to come back on that? Do they treat the symptom?
Because the pharmaceutical drugs treat the symptoms and not the actual epilepsy. So it's treating the seizures, okay? But it's not actually going in and treating the epilepsy itself.
Yeah. It's the way that the cannabis affects the neurological system is the key. Like Deborah said, it's one thing to have, you know, your buccal-midazolam, your epistatus, you know, all of these types of medications to stop seizures. They are effective to stop a seizure, but they are not actually treating the root of the issue. And that's what cannabis does. You know, I think that's maybe a good way to put it. Do you think, like, that cannabis goes to, that it goes to the root of the issue? it heals the neurological circuits of the body and causes the seizures to cease, you know, either completely or, you know, up to an extraordinarily high percentage for a particular condition that otherwise doctors don't know how to handle, you know. And I think it's just unfortunate that they don't seem to know how to handle cannabis either at the moment. And, you know, the to it, and therefore they're still watching their family members, you know, endure these seizures, and it need not be the case if they had access.
Absolutely, and the access. Sorry, Stephen.
Sorry, I was going to ask you just, Vera. You alluded to the projections that you were given in the beginning. So where is the beginning of that journey? What did, like, Western medical science, let's call it, decided that there was a projection on Ava's condition?
Yes, I mean, it was a very difficult conversation actually to even revisit. They sent away tests to Glasgow at the time, that go to Glasgow for our daughter. You know, at this stage she was about, between the seizure started when she was 4 months old, so I would say probably maybe by the time she was about 6 months old the tests had returned, and we were told that she had Dravet syndrome. I think I may have said this many times before, but it was horrific. They told us she would never walk. They told us she would never speak. They told wheelchair, and they told us that that was the match that lit the fire in me, because I felt at the time, you know, if Ava was going to be in a wheelchair, look, that was going to be fine, grand, but give her the opportunity to walk. How can you tell me when my baby is 6 months old what she's going to be like in so many years to come? So like the delivery of what her future was going to be like in our case was absolutely brutal. It was brutal, and I'll never forget, and I'll never forgive the woman that delivered that to me as a mother, a first-time mother, inside, to just blow all my dreams apart. And like, now my daughter is 11 years of age. She is walking, she is speaking, she is the queen of the house. She's a scut. She knows what she wants to eat. She knows what she doesn't want to eat as well, like Abigail, you know. And that is down to medical cannabis. And it's what's wrong about it, I feel, is why did we have to put so much energy into accessing it? Why did we have to wear ourselves out to do so much to access this extraordinary medication, which doesn't have negative side effects? You know, like, I only met the beautiful personality that my little girl has because of cannabis, because with the pharmaceuticals she was frozen, and she was like Abigail, she was lying on the couch for a lot of the time because she was out of it with pharmaceutical medications. That's no way to live. It's no way for a child to be.
No, they just exist.
Similar projections were you given, you know, originally?
No, we were the complete opposite, because Abigail was thriving up to the age of 6. She was in mainstream school. She was on a bicycle. She was on a scooter. She was walking and talking and chatting and doing everything that a 6-year-old would do. And then she had her first seizure 10 years ago. And every year she was just losing another ability, until she was just a vessel that I was keeping alive by feeding and medicating. And there was times I would be on my hands and knees praying to God, and I didn't know what I was praying for. Should I be prayed for God to take the child and not have this suffering, or pray for a cure? It's a terrible place to be, to look at your child slowly but surely drift away. They're dying, you know what I mean? She was dying in front of us, slowly but surely dying. And now, as Vera said, she's given plenty of guff. She's plenty to say. She's a 16-year-old, okay? So I have older daughters who love, when they were 16, like to slam doors and tell me they hate me. Well, I got that the other day, so big tick for a 16-year-old. I never thought I'd see the day. I'd be glad to see that coming back at me. But it's given her a chance.
Matter.
No, it absolutely.
Bold, you're delighted that they're doing something bold to have the ability to do it, you know, isn't it?
That their little brains are actually thinking about it, you know, even if they're answering back, that their little brains can calculate all that up, you know, is amazing to see. And like you, Vera, I've got to meet Abigail for the first time in 10 years last year there. Was the first time I got to see her. I got to see the little person that's in there, the personality, the funny child, you know, with an opinion, with preference, with a human being that was in there. And she was, you know, it was like that lockdown syndrome.
Yeah.
Is the only way I could explain it. And every week you see something new and something wonderful.
I think it's quite a curious thing that we don't really realize, you know. We don't know the progressions that you've been through, you know. So you've had quite different projections initially in terms of what the medical prognosis was. I've been down this road personally about getting a really bad prognosis, and then that's just me having to change my life turns my life upside down. But I mean, your prognosis kind of came at different stages.
Ours took 10 years. We only got our prognosis last year.
Wow.
It took 10 years of everything to come to that conclusion.
And then the remarkable thing, I think, is that in both cases, and both totally different stages in the children's development, you're able to kind of correct and help all the symptoms with medical cannabis. And that's the remarkable thing that's happened here in two completely different cases.
I believe if they get in early, if someone had have given Abby medical cannabis at 6 or 7 years of age, I don't believe the damage that would have been done to her little brain, that wouldn't have happened. She wouldn't have lost her abilities. You know, I think it needs to be a go-to first. Right. Okay, let's check this out, see where we're going, regardless to the severity of an epilepsy. I don't care whether someone's having 1 seizure a year or 1,000. Okay, it has to be wide open for everybody. It's not about what's happening to a person, their condition, it's about how it's affecting their lives. Okay, as you know, Stephen, the variations of MS. Okay, there's some people can carry on walking, some people can do so many more things, okay, and do well on pharmaceuticals, but then there's some people that don't. And I think for all of us across the board, from pain control to epilepsy, cancer, the whole lot, it's about choice.
And I think as well that the intervention early on, because over the course of the years, I have seen friends whose children have had intervention earlier, and they are making progress. That, you know, we're still aspiring to do is
Absolutely.
seizure, no matter whether it's a tonic-clonic, a focal seizure, a myoclonic jerk, whatever, every single seizure does damage. So therefore, if there's intervention with medical cannabis at an earlier stage, I do not think either that it should be the last resort. That is a big mistake, especially for people with seizures.
For me, Vera, that's up with war crimes. Having it to be the last option and not an option. It's not a choice. You know. And that's, as a parent, that's horrific, because it should be up to us. For the last 10 years, I've always felt that when it came to Abigail's epilepsy, it nearly had nothing to do with me. Everybody else decided her treatments. And I was expected to follow along, which I did, okay, because there was no other options. To follow along, and now to discover that this little bit of magic was out there, okay? I would rather Abigail have 50 seizures on medical cannabis than have 50 seizures on pharmaceutical drugs.
The thing as well is that if the intervention comes earlier, it prevents the damage being done. But if the intervention comes later, you're undoing damage. And there is a huge difference between prevention and undoing. And it is hard work, you know, to get them on their feet, to take the steps, to do all this. And you could focus down on other issues and other things if you didn't have to retrain the walking and do all this over and over again, you know?
Yeah, and even to get a physiotherapist, a speech therapist, the things that these children need, well, it's virtually impossible now at the moment with COVID. Okay, they can't get what they need, but 100% that, you know, it should be an option. Okay, most definitely.
Yeah.
How did that story begin for you, Deborah? In terms of we'll get into the medical cannabis end of it. So, like, when did you first, and when and how did you first get medical cannabis to Abigail?
Well, my first introduction to medical cannabis was Vera, like a Trojan going across the country to kick some ass. So that was my first introduction into it, and then it was
the power of sharing. I think, you know, it's the power of sharing knowledge and sharing experience, all of those things, you know.
100%, 100%. We were curious about it, and then we read Vera's book, and we started with Charlotte's Web, and we seen an improvement in not so much seizures, but Abby's anxieties and all the other little things that are going on. We seen major improvement there, so we slowly went along that path. And then we decided just to go for it and apply for a ministerial license, which is the easy part.
The Charlotte's Web was almost like a stepping stone, wasn't it? It was like it was our first introduction. It was our first introduction to CBD as well. And when it brought the cannabis into your home, it let you see the benefit of it and any fear that you would have had, because you know, I think everybody that began to use it is always nervous and fear at the beginning, but when there was
we were afraid because we'd heard so much about psychosis and, you know, huge amounts of things. So it was a slow journey, but the more we looked out into the world and that it was being used, and it came to the point that we had nowhere else to go. There was nowhere else to go. We had nothing to lose at this point. Yeah, and
it makes the barriers. It makes the barriers so immoral, you know, that are there. If they're not there, then this is like we're saying, it should be the point of first. It should be the first medicine to try.
Yeah. And then when you try and investigate it, like, I mean, when I tried to investigate, I was going to the neurologist and they were ushering me away very, very fast. They didn't want to know, they didn't want to hear about it. So that frightened me as well. Okay, because I was so dependent on these people. They had spent their lives studying epilepsy and all those things. So I mean, they'd gone to colleges, they had PhDs in this. I never realized the whole way along that it was actually I was the end, right? It was me with the PhD, and it was trial and error. And when, you know, Abigail being the trial, okay, but the error in the doctors of not listening, you know, when I was desperate, they didn't want to hear, they didn't want to know. I felt guilty, I felt bad about even thinking about it, okay, which delayed the process stepping forward to actually go get it.
Absolutely, we were the very same. Like that Mark McDonald is watching here at the moment, and you know, I think Mark McDonald has done more for people like us in this country, you know, to be the person who we were able to go to get the Charlotte's Web from the hemp store in Capel Street. And I remember very clearly, Mark, it was just, to me, it was just wow at the time. He introduced me to Joel Stanley above in his shop. And I saw that Joel was such a family orientated person. And, you know, it was so clear that he was genuine about this oil. And still I had it in my head, but the consultants are saying X, Y, and Z. And then I had a phone call with a consultant in Dublin who said to me on the phone, if I was in your situation, I would be using CBD. Yeah. Now, unfortunately, this consultant has never come out very publicly to say that, which is terribly unfortunate. But when I you know, it was like a stepping stone, like kind of what you're saying, Deborah, that I had met Joel Stanley. I had kind of sorted it out in my head that he was a genuine man. This was a good thing. Backed up with this consultant, I felt reasonably confident to move with the Charlotte's Web. But my God, what it did, it was a miracle. It was such an extraordinary change that you'd hardly be willing to talk about it, for you'd be afraid that, you know, the next thing she'd have a seizure. But it didn't happen, you know, it didn't happen. Yeah,
it's funny because I remember Abigail having to go and have her bloods done. I'd be so terrified that I'd get caught out.
Yes.
Absolutely terrified, you know.
But I don't think that see, Deborah, so it's okay.
Can I get you on to a little bit about it? Because I see a couple of questions appearing in the chat there, and people, leave your questions. If anybody has any questions, pop them into the chat, and we'll deal with them at the end. But can we get a little bit into what the composition of what Abigail is taking and what Ava is taking? Is it like it's a mix of THC and CBD? Is that the magic?
I'm still in early days, so Vera would be better at answering that one.
For us, and again, you see, I think it's different. Like I think the beauty of the cannabis is that it's entirely different for every individual. Right. There are some patients who for the CBD is completely adequate and it's enough for them to have a happy life. In our situation, we began the CBD oil in October of 16, and by the kind of February, March time of 2017, we were seeing too many breakthrough seizures to be happy about this anymore. But again, like, it was like a stepping stone, because, you know, we had accepted the CBD, but when we saw the improvements on the CBD, we just knew, it was our gut instinct, that the introduction of the THC was not going to be a negative if CBD was so positive, and THC is just another component of the plant. And sure enough, when we eventually got the introduction of the THC, I mean, my daughter was singing. I managed to catch over in Holland her singing Galway Girl. I mean, that day, I nearly had to be picked up off the floor. I don't know how I managed to get the phone, but like you, Deborah, I was galloping for the phone to get to be able to have this in my see it, you know. So yeah, we've got 10%. We're on Bedrocan, and we've got 10% CBD and the 2% THC. So, you know, just to say it as well, like, a lot of people are always asking about, oh, you know, you can get the CBD over the counter. And yes, you can get the CBD over the counter, but you can't get THC over the counter. And you need the license for the THC. That's what the license is for. But when we went to Holland, we were prescribed then the Bedrocan THC, and we were prescribed the Bedrocan CBD. So, I mean, you know, if there's a high enough quality of a product available in Ireland that you can buy over the counter, fair and good, but you need the license for the THC. And I mean, again, the cost is a huge issue, because like, it's massive. It's a massive impediment for people accessing cannabis at the moment, even
it's a mortgage, Vera. It's a mortgage, you know. It really is a mortgage.
It is. It's a mortgage for a pretty damn big house as well, isn't it? Yeah.
Absolutely. We're 7 months into it and fighting to get reimbursements with the HSE. I mean, I will need THC before it's all over. We're 7 months in, and I had to get a local TD even to help, because they weren't even, they said I didn't exist yet. They were acknowledging me. We were talking back and forth. We were emailing. I had sent all her stuff, and everything has disappeared. So I had to repackage everything and get it off via a local TD to help me. 7 months in, this is scandalous. Abigail ticks all the boxes. There's no reason in the world why she shouldn't have that reimbursement. It's scandalous.
How much is Abigail's medication costing you, Deborah, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I don't mind at all. And in comparison to what you would be paying, it's a fraction of it. It's costing us $600 a month every 30 days, which comes out of our own pocket. And that, I mean, that's why we couldn't go to the Netherlands, because it was affordability, you know. So we went to England to get it there, okay. And affordability, just that's where it brought us. So we had no choice. Yet again, no bloody choice. Not only did we not have a choice to get it, then when you do get it, you're so limited to what you can afford and what you can't afford. And we were getting frightened for Abigail. Time was running out. Every seizure is a potential fatality. I mean, you run out in front of the road enough times, you're going to get hit by a car. Doesn't matter who you are or what you are, you know.
And I don't know how many times we have got to explain to these people in the controlled drugs unit, or whatever minister it is at the moment, you know, when you speak about each seizure being fatal, I just think that they don't register. Like,
no, it's over the heads.
You know, this is a person. This is a family member. This is somebody that, you know, is a unique and special person. And that next seizure potentially could kill them, but yet you're not going to assist us to give us the ease to be able to live our lives and care for these children more properly. I'm not putting that across very well, maybe. Sorry, no, but
it is I think it's a remarkable it's a family trauma. Every seizure.
Horrific.
That's what I see from the outside, that it must be a family trauma, that every seizure, which is, and you talk about massive numbers of seizures. A lot of people were arriving late, and at the very start of this talk, we were talking about Abigail had a seizure earlier, and we're kind of talking about you might have to run off. Your husband is looking after, so it's a constant drama, and and I think
every day, every night of your life,
And when you don't have politicians listening to you, and they won't you have no empathy, and repeatedly no empathy, then it is I just find it such a shocking state of.
They're not in the trenches, they're not in the trenches, okay? Right. Even for your neurologist, he's not in the trenches, okay? You have to live this, this, like, I often say about Abigail, I am Abigail, okay, because I live and breathe that child. My life is no longer, you don't have friends, you don't have, myself and my husband haven't been away in 10 years. You can't. It's your whole world, everything you do through the night, when you get up in the morning, is all about this. It takes your whole focus. It devours a family. It absolutely devours a family.
I'd like to just remind people, if I can, that we tried to do this talk back in November, and between Vera's was under incredible stress trying to get across that we had the whole campaign of Talk to Vera and all that thing happen, but she was under incredible stress to get to make sure she was getting her deliveries during COVID. And you were having a massive situation with Abigail. You described it of coming off the drugs, that when you had what happened there exactly? She was
being taken down off her pharmaceutical drugs. She was being taken off a particular one called Epilepsy, and they took it down too quick. And it was nothing but horrific, major seizures. I have never seen that.
Happened us well. Yeah, that happened to us as well.
We were sitting downstairs one day, and you'd think there was an earthquake because her bed was vibrating so hard. I'll never forget it. An hour, I couldn't get her out. We were in and out of seizures, it was just crazy, and it went on for 3 or 4 days. A bucket load of buccal and midazolam, which is even a worse drug, I was throwing in to.
Yes.
I was fighting the devil with the devil. It was absolutely horrific. That by the time it'll come to us doing the chat, I was suffering from sleep deprivation. I was exhausted. I was to the point of stupid. I couldn't even drive my car. My eyes were dancing in my head, burning. I fell asleep one day beside her out of complete exhaustion. I was gagging. I was dry retching from tiredness, and woke up, and here she is having a seizure. It was horrific. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It was the most. It was like taking someone off bloody heroin.
Like you say, you're in the trenches. And,
you're in the trenches, yeah.
And that's the thing that's not, that doesn't get across to these people. And I have to thank you, the two of you, for being so frank here together. And the idea that you can be inspiring each other and then inspiring other people out there, I think, is extraordinary. And I love your strength is incredible. And, and I'm so glad this happened, because the last time I was going, my God, am I putting more pressure on the situation?
No. It's just our lives.
Yeah, you were very kind, I think, and very understanding about. After freezing there now, can you hear me? Oh, yeah. I think you were very kind, Stephen, and very understanding, because it is extraordinarily difficult to understand, what it's like and what the pressure is like. Sometimes I don't think you can even understand it yourself when she's there in front of you, you know, like it just becomes like the level of stress and the level of pressure you're dealing with is normalized because it's there for so long. But the thing is, coming off of the pharmaceutical medications, you know, is a very, very scary journey, because when you come down off anti-epileptic medications, one of the side effects of coming off anti-epileptic medications is actually seizure activity. So you have got that to contend with, you know.
We're experiencing that now at the moment. It's coming down of her pharmaceutical drugs, and I am seeing whoppers of seizures, like huge, unbelievable what I'm looking at. But I know it's part of the process. I mean, that
will pass. Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day, the one thing we do know, Vera, is these pharmaceutical drugs do not work for Abigail or Ava. They don't work. So they have to.
You know, I would just like to say that, you know, I mean, they don't work for our kids, but if they work for other people, and there's no serious side effects, and a person can be productive and have a happy life, that's great, that's okay. But it is not a one size fits all kind of situation, you know, like we need something different. And, you know, I mean, other people with maybe a more generalized condition, you know, and I know we're really focusing on epilepsy at the moment, but like people with a more generalized condition, I mean, the fact is that they could take medical cannabis, build up their endocannabinoid system, build up their immunity, and not need to have the pharmaceutical medications and the stress that those medications put on the body at all. But naturally, I mean, the pharmaceutical companies aren't going to be impressed by that, because if you develop seizure activity at the age of 8 or 10, you could be on Epilim for 40 years. That's a great customer. That's a customer, especially, like millions, that these people,
young women. The Epilim is so dangerous in young women, especially of childbearing age, and can cause huge deformities in their, you know, their unborn babies. This isn't only this generation; it's the next generation and the generation after that. I'm a grandmother of 3 beautiful boys. And this isn't only for Abigail, this is for those boys that they never, ever have to face the ordeals that you and I have had to face, Vera. Not only trying to keep our children alive, but to have to go up against authorities day in, day bloody out, on phones. It's non-stop. It never
non-stop. But
stops.
I feel like that, I feel very strongly, actually, that the humiliation that we have had to go through over the course of the years, you would hope that that humiliation would be worth something in the future for a little child that isn't even born yet, you know.
Absolutely.
There'll be something in the future that, because of just I suppose the determination to keep putting it out there and not accepting the brick wall that we experience, that other people will benefit. Because
there you go, Vera. I mean, there's 5-6 years between our children, and when my child had her first seizure, your child wasn't even born, but it was your child that led the way for my child. So I mean, there's always hope. You know, there's always, and that's what we need, is hope. You always need that next step.
And like looking back on it, like you said that you saw Ava's story, and I mean that's just proves it, like, that you'd be so delighted that somebody else was touched and their lives were improved by this. Yeah. We were looking to America at the time, back in probably 15, you know, to Charlotte Figgy, and what she was doing and how it worked for them. So, you kind of think that, well, it's the right thing to do to come out and talk about it, because it was another woman who came out and talked about her child and the benefit that it brought to her that triggered us to see what an alternative way forward for the girls was going to be, you know?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
Like you said, Deborah, there's another generation coming along, and you know, whether it's all these students that are in colleges or whatever, they're all like, there's eventually going to be new kids and new issues and all of these things. And the point is that nobody should ever have to go through what you've been put through, and we can only be thankful for what you've done over these last few years. I'm going to ask Linda to look at the chat to see what questions we have, because we just, I know the people, it's been an amazing talk, ladies, and I can never thank you enough but it is about that. It's about letting people know that if you have, you know, the bad luck, essentially, that this, you know, comes to your door, then it's you two, are you groundbreakers that are making this a thing that it should not be the last point of looking for a solution. So,
but you said bad luck, you know, in a way you said bad luck, but you know, you got no, just because I know that some people think, like I would say, oh God, the poor misfortunes, the way she is, and that kind of way, but the girls are a gift. You know,
absolutely. But it's the fear as a mother of losing them.
On loan, she's on loan to us for a period of time, because I have learned more about myself and about the ways of the world and about other people than I ever could possibly not have learned that at all, only for Ava being in our lives. So they're actually, you're kind of lucky, you know. It's hard.
It's great.
Choice of words. I'm very, very sorry. Yeah. I stand corrected, and I totally get it when it fell out of my mouth. I'm going, okay. But
it's the road less traveled, okay, and it takes people to go down that road, fill in the potholes, move the obstacles away as much as you know. Every person that comes down this road, okay, needs to lift a stone, move it out of the way so that the next person's not going to trip over it, okay?
Yeah.
Vera can't move all the stones, and she can't fill in all the potholes on her own. We have to do that. We have to be an army. You can't just have a soldier.
There you go.
Yeah. We got to do it together. And I hope you don't mind me just saying this now. And actually, I wasn't criticizing you at all, like about saying good, bad luck. It's just that I know that some people do look at it like that, and I have a different perspective, I suppose, because we love her so much, you know. But I know that there's a lot of students looking out on maybe tonight at this, and I was thinking, when we were talking on the phone the other day, Stephen, I was just thinking, you know, the young people have a fierce role to play in moving this forward, because huge. And I really think that maybe as much younger people than certainly what I am, you mightn't even realize the power that you've got. And if the people that are out there tonight are looking at this and saying, what can I do? I think a possibility of what you can do is you can tell your local candidate, your local TD, I'm not going to vote for you again unless you do something about proper legislation for cannabis in this country. And if enough people highlight that to their TDs, all TDs want, no matter what party they're from, is to be re-elected again. And if enough of us can stand together, like you said, like an army or whatever it is, we can all be soldiers together and tell these politicians, look at boy, I'm not going to vote for you the next time because you got to deliver on this topic for me. And I would you agree? Like that
100%.
more people that say that is a powerful message as well, because again, all the politicians want is another spin, another couple of years inside the doll, and another however many thousand that they get above there. Do you know what I mean?
That's
unbelievable, right. Unbelievable, you know. So you continue to inspire every time you speak, Vera, and so happy about it. We're just moving because we run out of time, and people asking questions. Linda, do we have something for the ladies? It's powerful stuff, that's for sure.
Yeah, so inspiring, both of you. Just fantastic stuff. Thanks a million for your talk tonight. Hi, Vera. We have a few questions. Mark, I think it's the Mark that was mentioned earlier, was asking, are both of your girls using Bedrocan?
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes and no.
No. Abby's using one called Adven, Adven.
Okay.
Which we get from London.
The Adven is from England, and the Bedrocan is from the Bedrocan is from the Netherlands. And just it just might be interesting for people to know, like, regarding the prices, because Deborah was saying there that the medication is €600 a month. The Bedrocan medication is €9,500 every 3 months.
That's right.
So if you're a Bedrocan patient that isn't being refunded the medication, like Deborah said, as it stands with Abby's medication, it's a mortgage. With the Bedrocan, it's literally unattainable if it's not included in some kind of format, in some kind of program to allow it to be refunded, you know. And it's a travesty that our medication is being refunded, but other people's medication isn't being refunded at all, whether it's medication from England or whether it's medication from the Netherlands. Across the board, they're Irish citizens and patients that should have their medication refunded. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks, Vera.
Sorry.
Sorry. Cleena was asking, are you finding that neurologists are changing their minds?
Yes, some, but they don't want to come forward. They're behind us 100%, but they're not going to stick their necks out of the pulpit in any way, shape or form, because it's a bit like whack-a-mole, you know, that game. They stick their heads up, you know. Like I think they're full support. But, sorry.
I think they're afraid of what their peers will think, you know, the other consultants in the, I remember one now, she said she didn't want to be known as the cannabis doctor, and a cannabis consultant. And I think there's a bit of that involved as well, like that they don't want to be the first one to come out publicly saying too much about it, you know, isn't it?
Yeah. Stigma.
Thanks very much. Brian was asking, did the pharmaceutical drugs cause negative side effects?
100%. Yes,
100%.
Absolutely. They, I know with my own daughter, staggering, drooling, not able to function, not able to think for herself, in a very deep brain fog she was in. And sedated, heavily sedated all the time. So very unable to function.
Yeah, we were exactly the same. Yeah. We had all of that as well. And there was one other, you know, aside from the drooling and the they weren't there. The child wasn't there. The eyes were glazed over. There was no brightness. But I remember when we were in Holland, it just kind of over the course of the time began to notice something about Ava, and it was really strange. I began to recognize some of my relations in her features. She actually began to look a tremendous amount. Did you read the same? She began to look.
Seeing that now. Yeah. We're it's like, I don't know if I'm using the correct vocabulary here, but the retardation was nearly leaving her face.
Well, I would kind of call it maybe the paralysis, because it seemed to me that like it was like as if, right, I'd only ever known Eva with this frozen feature. Yes. And when the cannabis began to heal her body and her mind, the features like softened out. You put it somewhere lovely there, and then it massaged it out, I think you said, yeah, Deborah.
It massaged it all away. It oozed away from them. It just oozed from them. Yeah, absolutely.
There was actual paralysis that was alleviated by the introduction of the cannabis, which was actually horrifying that that had happened to her.
It's an awakening. Yeah, it's an actual awakening. It's a very precious thing to see happening, is that little mind wakening up and being alert and aware of the surroundings. And my daughter tells me she loves me every day. For 10 years, I believe my daughter was severely autistic and wasn't able to say those words. My daughter tells me 10 times a day, in between slamming the doors and hating me, that she loves me. So
Eva told me one night that she loved me too, and I wasn't right for a couple of days after it, because you just begin to accept in a way that you're not going to hear those kind of things from them. And then when it happens, it just makes, I think, it just makes everything or anything that you've tried to do for them, it justifies everything when that happens. It really does.
Absolutely.
Really.
Absolutely.
Linda, let's have another question to
sure.
Want to let the ladies go very soon. So
Martin was wondering, how much oil do you get for your €9,500? A tank, one would hope.
3 months. Would it? 3 months?
3 months, that's it. And I mean, Martin will know well, you know, what that is an extortionate amount of money for cannabis.
How many mils would that be, Vera? Like, how many bottles or how many mils would that be?
You would get, jeepers, I'd say, you put me on the spot. I'd say probably about. It's a 90-day supply. I'd say it would be about 55 bottles. About that much, give or take. I could be wrong with my numbers there now, but it's enough for 3 months. And you know, it's just ridiculous. And the thing is, you know, I don't know whether we'll have time to touch on the compassionate access program or anything, but like Stephen Donnelly has funded the compassionate access program for the parents and of our patients moving forward. But what about the rest of us? What about the people that aren't being funded at all? How can you be looking for credit regarding the funding of a compassionate access program while you're abandoning patients who are struggling to find money to pay for these medications, prescription to prescription? And in our case, we're recycling the same 9,500 because, you know, we've got it at the moment, but circumstances could change. You don't know what's going to happen, and it's really, really scary. You know, when you know that the kids are depending on this to be well, it's an awful amount of worry to have on your shoulders. You know?
It's huge. It has a major impact on people, on your own mental health. The worry, the constant worry. I mean, I would sell my soul to the devil if I thought for one moment that he'd give me the cash to go and buy next month's medication, okay? And I have to find it every month. It's not a case, I don't even get the 3 months, because in England they only do a prescription per month.
By a month? Oh, wow.
1 month prescription, yeah. So And with COVID and bad weather, you're terrified that the deliveries won't come on time. So you're moving earlier all the time to make sure that, that fear. Like, I mean, I was even worried that there was snow. I was going, oh my God, how am I going to get to Newry? How am I going to, what if I get COVID and I'm stuck in for 2 weeks? And I mean, it's just, it's head spinning stuff. I mean, we have enough to deal with on a day-to-day basis in trying to manage these children. To have to wring your cap out, begging and pleading, and phones being put down on you, and the whole, like, I mean, I know they're saying MCAP's going to be rolled out, and I hope they do it. I really, really hope we're not sitting here at this time next year. But I can't even let go and relax on that. I mean, because I'm so terrified. Every penny is accounted for.
And the thing is, they can go back on what they can go back on what they've said that they will do. Or, you know, even if you go back to when Simon Harris came out in a blaze of glory, making the announcement of the Compassionate Access Programme, but he omitted to mention that there was no funding for it, you know? Like, I mean, that, you know, I think back then, a lot of people thought
very well. He said that they give us a new car, but didn't give us the keys. So it was rendered useless.
Okay, you have to wrap it up here. With one more question has come in. Deborah, is your daughter's medicine delivered to you from the UK? That's from Ashling.
It's delivered from the UK to Newry, and then I have a ministerial license to go across the border and pick it up.
Very good.
So.
Okay, there aren't any other questions for now. Well, we've run out of time, but just to say that all the comments are just so full of admiration and support for you women. You're just incredible. You really are incredible.
An incredible talk as well, Deborah and Vera. You know, it's unbelievable what you've done here again. I know I'm very, very conscious about patients always having to respin their story, you know, but to try and inspire people. But that's what we have to do, because we're up against many barriers in this world of medical cannabis until prohibition and things are sorted out. And so really, I cannot thank you enough for trusting me, first of all, to come on and talk. And I know that we're going to push this. This will go back into the students again and again until they kind of see the kind of the realities that's being lived out there by people, and their need for change in legislation. And
that's fantastic, Stephen, because we need the youth. We really need them coming in behind us, because we're old ladies now, and we need young fit ones to push this through. It's up to them to come out fighting now and do what they need to do, and get in behind us and start shouting as loud as they can.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
And just to realize that every email and every effort that each individual makes is so appreciated by the likes of us, you know, that like it's multiples of emails, it's multiples of contacts are going to help, and that no matter how small you think that your gesture or your email is, it isn't small at all. It's deeply appreciated by people like us, and that they could be doing a great thing for people down the road that we don't even know about yet, you know. So just
you deserve it all, ladies, and I think we'll leave it there then for the night. Give you a rest, and thank you so much for coming and telling us all about it again. Yeah. So
thanks, Stephen. Thanks.
Have a nice evening for yourselves, and give Ava and Abigail a hug for us all.
Will do.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Stephen. We'll see. Bye, Linda.
Thanks, million.
Bye, love. Thanks, million.